The Innovators Network.
Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's episode. This week, we are answering a question that we got inbound from a listener of the show. The question was about innovation storytelling. This particular individual had come across some of the short films that I have done over my career, a total of 10, 5 of them at HP, 1 really in support role to Corning, and then the 4 most recently at Cable Labs, where I am the CEO. These innovation storytelling are short films, typically 3.5, 4.5 minutes in length. And they each focus on one particular area. And the mission of these stories are to convey what the future will look like in sometime in the 3 to 8 time frame. And so the question that came in via email was how hard is it to create these? And what does it really take? And what tips would you give us? And so that is what we will cover in today's episode. We'll also give you a little bit of a feel behind the scenes on what was the inspiration for some of those films. In the show notes, we will have links to all of the films so that you can find them and view them and see what they see what's in them and understand them. Some of them are not online. Some of the older ones are just not there, but we will try to track down as many of them as we can, just to kind of give you a sampling or a feel for this. But I am a firm believer that innovation storytelling is a key, important, critical tool for you when trying to convey your idea and convince others to join you or write you a check in order for you to get your funding. So you are going to want to listen to this episode. Towards the middle to latter half of the episode, I will give you the 7 tips that I wish I had when I started down creating these innovation stories back 15, 20 years ago. So you're going to want to listen to that before you sit down and start creating your own innovation stories. But hopefully this will inspire you to go out, strike out on your own, create that innovation story, get others to support your program, your project, your idea, and to get that funding. Now, before we jump into this week's episode, got a favor to ask: follow, like, and share. Follow us on social media, like this episode, and then share it. Share it with somebody who you think would benefit from it, whether that be a senior leadership team or your direct reports or maybe an investor you're trying to convince as to why you're spending this money in creating this short film about your innovation. Again, follow, like, and share. And with that, let's jump into this week's episode.
This episode is sponsored by Zoom. With Zoom, you can streamline your communication, collaboration, and creativity all in one place. Zoom is the market-leading platform that provides video meetings, voice, webinars, and chat across desktops, phones, tablets, and conference room systems. To learn more about Zoom and sign up for your free account, visit killerinnovations.com/Zoom.
We all know storytelling is a time-honored tradition. Stories have been passed down from generation to generation, and they exist in every culture. And storytelling is powerful because it appeals to all of our senses. We hear stories with our ears, and we see them with our eyes using our imagination. But storytelling can also be a very effective innovation tool when you use it as your way to communicate your new idea. When you use storytelling to communicate an innovation, you are able to capture people's attention and connect with them on a deep emotional level. This connection is what allows you to get your message across in a way that is both memorable and meaningful. And when you're able to do that, you're able to create a lasting change and a shared understanding of both the problem and how your idea solves that problem. Storytelling is such an effective way to communicate new ideas and innovations. Highly innovative organizations make it a standard part of a team's innovation process. At all of the companies I've worked at, I have made storytelling an integral part of the innovation process. Not an option, not a choice, but the teams need to create the innovation story for their idea and for their innovation. Innovation teams use storytelling to prototype and test the new ideas with customers and users, rather than trying to talk about the nuances or the details or the complexity of it or how cool or slick it is. It is about conveying it in a story that others can understand. Treat the innovation story as your verbal prototype for your idea. And storytelling is also used as a way to communicate the results of the innovation project to the internal teams. It's not just external. You use it internally to get alignment, to get people on board, to get them to support. It's also around not just telling and sharing the story, but it's also a way to engage people, get their emotions involved, pique their curiosity, get them to commit their time, their resources, their money. And when you use storytelling as part of your innovation process, you're really able to get everybody excited about your idea and involved, whether that's just the support of a team going, yeah, go for it, or someone writing a check. And when people are involved in the development of an innovation, they are more likely to be committed to its success. So how do you go about storytelling when it comes to innovation? The first step is to find a story that applies to your innovation. It isn't about the technology. It isn't about the idea. It's the story that applies your innovation. The story should be one that people can relate to and understand. And here is the key. It is not science fiction. People will see right through that and will give the impression that your idea is out of reach. They want to see innovations that can apply to them. That may be not here today, it may be something in the near future, but it's not Buck Rogers science fiction. And once you have a good story in mind, you need to start thinking about how to tell it. You'll need to focus on the story arc that includes creating a beginning, a middle, and the end to your story, just like a movie, just like a play, just like a fiction book, a beginning, a middle, and the end to your story. And you also need to make sure that your story is engaging, it's captivating. And if you can do these things, you will be well on your way to both storytelling success and securing the commitment and the resources and the passion of others around your idea. Innovation storytelling is a powerful tool because it can connect with people, again, on that emotional, that incredibly deep emotional level. This connection is what allows you to get your message across in both a memorable, you have a great innovation story, people will remember it for years and for decades. And when you're able to do this, you're going to create a lasting change. People are going to buy into that vision and they're going to want to help make it a reality. Now, there are many uses of an innovation story. Foremost, it helps you communicate your new idea to others. When you have a great story to share, it becomes much easier for people to understand your innovation. Now, in addition, storytelling can also be used as a tool for inspiring change. You can use an innovation story for corporations to think differently about how they should change their processes or how they position themselves in the minds of their consumers. it can and encourage change to happen, make a difference. And last, storytelling can also attract support, such as funding and partnerships. When you have a great story to share, it can help you get what you need to make your innovation a reality. And I cannot underemphasize that. Great innovation storytelling is one of the keys to securing financial support, resource support, customers' willingness to buy, partners willing to join alongside you. Now, storytelling is also a powerful tool when you're trying to build an innovation culture inside your organization. When staff, recruits hear exciting and engaging stories, it can inspire them to come up with new ideas and to take action. In addition, storytelling can also help to bring people together. When you have a shared story, a shared mission, it can help to create a sense of community and collaboration. You have a common goal. You have a common objective. The story rallies people around. And when people are aware of an innovation inside your organization, they're more willing to support it. They're more willing to engage. They're more willing to pour their resources, their teams, their budgets into your idea. Now, over my career, I have created what I would really classify as 10 innovation stories. These are all stories that are told in the near future, 3 to 8 years out in the future. I did 5 of those at Hewlett Packard. I've done 4 in my current role at Cable Labs, and I actually assisted Corning to do one for Corning after they saw the 5 that I did at HP. I'll talk about 2 specific examples. One is what's called Roku's Reward. Roku's Reward is a short film. It's about 3 minutes, 20 seconds, I believe. It's been around since, I'm going to say, I think the copyright on it is 2007, maybe 2006. It's been around for quite a while. And it is an AR, VR game in real life. The film starts off in a young teenager's bedroom. His mobile device, triggers to tell him the game is about to start. He jumps out of bed, gets ready, goes out the door, hops onto a San Francisco cable car, gets off, and he's in the gameplay with his friends and others. And it's a combination of a VR, AR type of game experience. Now, the idea from this came from actually an experience that I'd had in London the year before in a prototype experience in London, in a very small section of London called Tag and Scan. Basically, it used mobile devices with an external GPS. Remember back then, GPS devices were not in phones. But with a Tag and Scan, you could, in effect, leave a digital message tagged to a specific location. And when certain friends came up, or you wanted to leave a message or a photograph or a memory, you could experience it. It also created a whole genre of experiences, which I would call digital graffiti. You literally could leave a digital message outside of a restaurant that said, "Do not eat here, food is horrible, service was bad," whatever it is. And it was a prototype experience. It was kind of interesting. And then I thought about it because at that time I also had, we were building up the gaming business unit at HP, and we were doing a lot of work in the gaming industry. So I thought about applying that to gaming. What would future games look like? And that's where the storyline came in for Roku's Reward. And keep in mind also at this time, HP made mobile devices. HP created mobile applications. It was really in the crux of what we were doing at the time. Thus, Roku's Reward. Now, this film is 15, let's call it 15 years old now. You know that I still get emails from entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, everybody wanting to know who created that game and where could they find it, or has anybody created the game, or what would be the vision story or the innovation story today for a Roku's reward like metaverse type of experience. And a lot of interest is in this that has come up with with the metaverse conversation. And by the way, if you want to watch Roku's reward, it is available on my YouTube channel, so you can just go over and find it there. But again, 15 years ago, it was designed really to be 3 to 8 years out, and it still gets a lot of interest and a lot of inquiries coming in from it. So that's just one example. The more recent one is what the film is called the Near Future Films. These are a series of 4 starting in 2016. Which we did 16, 17, 18, and 19. 4 films, all in the near future, 3 to 8 years out. And this one was the 2017 film called A Better Place. This film was around what would be the role of a smart house in allowing people to age in place, senior citizens being able to age in place. Again, this film is set in the future, 3 to 8 years out. Jim, who is in his mid-80s, wanting to live by himself in his home, dealing with medical issues, but wanting to stay connected with his friends and his family, but not feel like they're babysitting him or invading his privacy. And so it's a really compelling film. A Better Place film is also one that we get a lot of inbound inquiries from people wanting to buy the technologies that we demonstrated in that film. And it wasn't really what I would call demonstrating. These are really compelling short films, 3 to 4 minutes in length, maybe 4.5 minutes at length max. And these have created what I would call really compelling stories, emotional, ups and downs, looking at it from the standpoint of having a problem and how do you solve it, using things that we believe are innovations that are coming. And all in all, this is just 2 of the 10 films, but it gives you a compelling reason or a compelling example of what it is, what I mean by innovation storytelling. Now, one of the things that come up in my conversations with companies who are looking to do an innovation story is they confuse an origin story and an innovation story. An origin story is not always the same as an innovation story. An origin story typically tells the story of how a company or product came to be, while an innovation story focuses on a specific new idea or invention and how it will be experienced, how it will solve the problem in the future. Thus, these 2, origin stories and innovation stories, have completely different types of story structure. However, there can be some overlap between the 2 types of stories, and it's often helpful to think about them together. When you're thinking about storytelling for innovation, it is important to keep both the origin story and the innovation story in mind. Now, when it comes to storytelling for innovation, the story arc is key. The arc is the structure that your story must follow, and it includes, again, the beginning, a middle, and the end. In order to create a successful story structure, you need to make sure that your story focuses on a plot and the characters, just like a good movie, a good play, or a good book. The beginning of your story should introduce the characters and the setting. It should also set up the conflict or the problem that the characters are facing without your innovation. The middle of your story should explore the conflict and the characters' attempts to resolve it using the innovations you are basing your story around. And finally, the end of your story should show how the innovation resolves the conflict, and it leaves the audience with a feeling of satisfaction and convinced that your innovation can deliver on the promise. It's not a sales video. It's not a sales story. It's an emotional storytelling tool. Now, when you're planning your innovation story, it's important to keep all three of these elements in play. Set up the characters, set up the problem. The middle is the conflict, how to use it, the issues. Third is painting that vision, painting that future, painting how your innovation in the future makes life so much better, so much easier, so much more complete, more satisfying. So, what I'm going to share with you now are the 7 tips for successful storytelling. The 7 tips for successful storytelling. Tip number 1, find a great story that highlights the innovation. Think long and hard about that story. The storytelling process begins with finding that story that just fits the innovation that you're trying to address. This can either be an innovation origin story or a more recent other story about how someone may have used your innovation in an interesting way that elicits some form of a close emotional response. And the next step is to find those key points in the story and then write it in such a way that the readers and the viewers of a video, if you're going to make a video, are hooked from beginning and end. And finally, it's important to get feedback, test it, play it out for others, and get their thoughts. So, as I shared before, the origination for Roku's Reward was this tag and scan experience, prototype experience that we created in London when we were doing mobile services at HB. The near future film, A Better Place, where Jim, a middle 80s person living on their own. The origin for that film, the context for that film was my grandmother, who was in her early 90s at the time, living by herself in Cincinnati, Ohio, and wanting not to move out of the house that she had lived in for 70 years. And so using stories out of real life and then writing that into an innovation story. Number 2, the second tip that you should make sure you follow is make sure the story is interesting. It isn't so personal that only you get it, or only some, inside baseball so deep that only a small niche. You are trying to create an innovation story that has broad appeal, that has broad interest. And this is harder than it sounds. It is hard to create a story that is interesting and engaging. You need something that hooks the reader from the beginning to end. And you need to find something that is going to highlight your innovation, that it isn't a great story and you're just kind of jamming the innovation into it. It actually becomes a critical character in the innovation story. And you need to do it in an authentic way. And you need to be able to get people to understand, to get emotionally engaged, to root for the solution. And when they start rooting for your solution, you know you've got them. And again, like we say about across all of these tips, is test it. You may think you've got it. This is the hard part, is how do you make it interesting and engaging? And in some cases, I would recommend that you think about bringing in outsiders to help in crafting and writing the story. It may be a document that you're going to publish. You may not do a video like I do. There may be other ways for you to tell your innovation story. But in some cases, you may need some outside help. This is hard to write it in such a way that it is interesting and engaging. Tip number 3, communicate the story in a clear and concise way. Now, in order to create a clear and concise story, it's important first to understand all the different elements that make up the story. You need to understand all the elements, the characters, the setting, the challenge, the problem, the solution. And I would encourage you to think about simplification. You can't introduce 10 characters who are going to have this complex relationship and you're going to magically solve it in a 3.5 minute film. You get maybe 1 or 2 prime characters. Everybody else is a secondary character, which just plays along. You need to move, the pace has to be very, very quick. You have to get to the solution and you have to wrap it up. There has to be a payoff at the end. And again, test your story. Test your story, do storyboarding, similar to what they do in Hollywood, where you have little grids on a PowerPoint or physically on a 4-foot by 8-foot foam core board. They'll put up index cards with sketches on it, and you walk everybody through scene by scene, shot by shot, dialogue by dialogue, element by element, to make sure everybody gets it and understands it, because you want to make sure it's clear and concise. You have to move quickly. If you're not gonna do a 45-minute film around some innovation story, people are not gonna stay engaged. You have to make this very intriguing, very exciting. I tend to go with higher energy in the innovation stories that I've created. But whatever format works for you, but you've got to be clear and concise. Tip number 4, make sure the story is relevant to your audience. Not all stories fit all audience. When you're thinking about writing the story, when you're in the early stages of it, who do you want to watch this film? Is this general population? Is it generally maybe an age demographic, or maybe it's a certain geography? In the case of near future film number 2, which is called A Better Place, it's about an aging in place scenario, mid-80s. So go talk to people. Maybe it's your own relatives, maybe it's your parents or your grandparents. Ask them, what are their concerns, their fears, their hopes, right? And weave that into your innovation story. Look, you should be doing the same thing for the innovation. Is your innovation solution going to address their concerns, their fears, and their hopes? That's how you make the innovation a character, not just something that's slapped on and say, oh, and look, we got this, super duper Acme widget that, solves everything. No, make it a character, integrate it in, become a natural part of that story. But you need to understand those concerns, those fears, those hopes for the broader audience. And that's where you can create some really interesting emotional hooks. Number 5, create authentic stories. You want to be doing authentic storytelling. It's true storytellers, and it's about either current, future experiences, something that appears real. It's not science fiction. It's not Buck Rogers, like, boom, automatically, limbs get replaced, or artificial organs are now instantly available. That's Buck Rogerish, right? So you've got to keep it authentic. Now, it can be embellished. It can be altered for dramatic effect. But you need to have some form of alignment to where it is today. Again, back to Near Future Film 2, Better Place. One of the elements and one of the innovations in that film is nanobots. And nanobots specifically targeting brain aneurysms. Now, why brain aneurysms? Why was that interesting? Well, turns out my grandfather actually died from a brain aneurysm, and my grandmother had surgery for a brain aneurysm. So, again, the film was kicked off, and really aligned with the story of my grandmother and what we were going through with trying to support her desire to want to live independently. So that could come across as a little Buck Rogerish. So what we did is I elicited the help from the innovation team at Mayo Clinic. And Mayo Clinic stepped in and actually reviewed the script and actually made some changes to the dialogue in order for them to feel comfortable that what we were presenting was in the foreseeable future, work that was underway that's going to become a solution here in the future, and was not a wish or magic or, cross your fingers, but it had a scientific basis to it. So again, create authentic stories. And if you're not sure, go talk to an expert. Figure it out. Number 6, I'm going to reinforce this again. Keep the stories concise. You need to start with the conflict, end in a climax, right? Well, that's normal, movie making. This is true for storytelling that we've been doing for decades, but not innovation storytelling. We're talking short, no more than 3 to 4 minutes to either watch a film or read a document. You need to keep it really, really short and concise. It needs to be, it needs to get to the point across quickly and effectively. And you only have one chance to make an impression on your audience. So you got to make it count. Brevity is key. First, you need to capture your audience's attention. You need to do that quickly. And you got to keep them engaged. You only have a few minutes to make an impression. And if you drag out the story, you will lose them. Second, you need to be clear and concise in your storytelling. You don't want to confuse your audience with too much information or side tracks or too many characters or too much backstory. Don't need it. And finally, you just got to get to the close quickly. You need to give them a payoff at the end that goes, oh, everything is fine. The world is great. When I become 90, I'm not going to have to worry. All these great things are going to be around. My ability to live independently is going to be great. And my parents' or my grandparents' life is going to get better. Number 7, recognize that using your innovation storytelling is just one part of a larger communication strategy. Successful, highly innovative companies know that storytelling is one of the most powerful tools to connect with its customers and inspire them into getting into action, to do something, make a decision, move forward. And when it comes to innovation storytelling, using this tool can help your company stand out from the competition and be seen as a leader in the field. But also recognize you can't do it all. A great innovation story is not going to be the one and done solution to make your company highly successful. It's one of many tools. Larger communication strategies need to be built up on and aimed at the specific customers, what you need and what you want to go after. Now, the common question I get is okay, how did you do the 5 films at HP, and how do you do the 4 films at Cable Labs that are just absolutely amazing? Or how did Corning do A Day in the Life of Glass? Where did this all come from? Well, one is that there's a small team that I've worked with over the years. Same team. It's the exact same team that has worked with me for all 10 of the films. 5 at HP, the 4 at Cable Labs, the 1 at Corning. It's the exact same team. And this team is made up of script writers, animators from Industrial Light and Magic, Lucasfilms, studios, advertising firms, a whole cadre of people that come together. And one nice thing about this is this team comes together, we do these things, and then poof, everybody goes back and does their own independent projects or work. It's almost a little bit of a work of passion. Now, you can assemble your own team if you so wish. Maybe you have your own skill sets to do this. I've had a number of companies, particularly recently, who've have a quote internal corporate communications team, and they do internal videos, and they should be able to do this, and so they're going to try it on their own. And that's great. If you've got the skill set, take advantage of that. That's fantastic. This is much more like a Hollywood than it is around corporate communications. So just keep that in mind. And you may want to bring in some outside resources, some outside expertise. One expertise area that you may want to look at is go find yourself an innovation agency. We've been talking about what is an innovation agency, why would you use one? This is one of the reasons why you would use them. A good innovation agency has a phenomenal portfolio of movies and films, or innovation storytelling, could be written documents. So you want to go check that out. And they can help anything from create the narrative up front to doing the whole thing end to end and deliver you the finished product. Keep in mind, in my history, from the time you say go, assuming you don't have anything really the basis of the story. I mean, literally, you're looking at a blank sheet of paper in order to turn around and have a 4.5 minute film or so. You better be planning on something like, 6, 7, 8, even 9 months, start to finish, including all the development of the story, script writing, casting, filming it, post-production, animating it, music, scores, the whole 9 yards, and deliver you a finished film that you can then use. So these things are not lickety-split, do it in 3 weeks. These things take an extensive amount of time. And again, I would encourage you to go on over and take a look at it. You can see Roku's reward over in over on my YouTube channel, or if you want to see some of the other films, they're not all up there. They're just representative examples, but I believe Near Future Film 2, A Better Place, is up there over at Techtrend, TechTrend.com. Just click on the portfolio, and you'll click down and you'll see innovation storytelling is one of the categories in the portfolio, and you'll see some of the films. And so again, full disclosure, Techtrend is the innovation agency. I founded back in 1996, and I'm not involved that much in the day-to-day at Techtrend, albeit it is the umbrella that has been used for some of this work in the past. So you can check out that portfolio over at Techtrend, TechTrend.com. Click on portfolio, and you can check that out. And if you're interested, you can always drop a note to the team over at Techtrend at hello@techtrend.com, and they can give you advice if you're interested in the innovation storytelling. So, again, innovation storytelling, a very important tool, whether that's something that you want to have broadly presented to customers, you wanted to use it internally as a team building, culture building, industry storytelling. It can be used as a way to go raise money. So something that you would show to the capital market or venture capitalists or investors in order for them to get excited about what it is you're going to go create and tell that story in a very interesting and very compelling way. And so think about how you would use innovation storytelling. And again, you can take a variety of forms. You can do it as a pure audio. You can make it almost into a podcast episode that's got that's set in the future, that shows or communicates how your innovation will have an impact in the future. You could do it as a video, which is kind of my preferred format, or you can do it in the form of a story. You can write a fiction story and tell it, or you can do it more as almost a pseudo documentary. There's a variety of, as many ways as you can think about it. There's that many ways you can tell your innovation story. But I would encourage you to think long and hard and commit to using innovation storytelling as a way to get that emotional hook, to really reach out and touch the audience, the people that you're trying to influence, about how your idea and how your innovation is going to change their day-to-day lives. So of the 7 tips, which one do you think you will have the most challenge with? Now, I'll tell you the one that I have seen more organizations, more companies, more teams struggle with every time they try to create this innovation story around some great innovation or idea they have. And in fact, I repeated it twice when I was listing the 7 tips, and that is be concise. It is incredibly hard to craft and produce a great innovation story that's in 3.5, 4 minutes tops in size. And that is by being concise. It's hard. It's hard to cut things out and just keep it to the real core elements that are there. I'm hoping the films that are over in the show notes will give you encouragement and maybe give you some thoughts and examples of how to deal with complex innovation issues in a very quick and concise way. And again, if you're interested, drop me a note. Can get you the right connections to begin thinking about your own innovation storytelling. And with that, thanks again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join. Hopefully you find this content and information useful on your innovation journey, whether to you individually or your team, if you are using the podcast as part of a team discussion, team catalyst. So innovation, in my mind, is one of the most critical, most important skill sets you and your organization can have and build upon and improve, particularly in today's highly competitive market. And again, I want to thank you for your time. Time is the most valuable asset. We really do appreciate it. And stay tuned. We will be back next week with a new episode.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.
This show is distributed by the Innovators Network. For more information and other great shows and content, visit theinnovators.network.